The Fire Within short story by JameliaAlicia. When Amelia started her first year of high school, she believed that the most important thing in the world was being noticed. She wasn't the loudest student. She wasn't the prettiest by the impossible standards teenagers often set for themselves. She preferred books to parties, spent lunch breaks sketching stories in the margins of her notebooks, and creating stories in her head using her own illustrations. Then there was Ryan. He was popular and athletic, surrounded by people who laughed at everything he said. Amelia convinced herself that beneath the confidence, there had to be kindness that was a facade in a crowd of boys. She watched him from a distance for months until one afternoon, she gathered enough courage to tell him how she felt. Her hands trembled. I like you." Ryan looked at his friends before looking back at her. Then he laughed. "You?" he said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I'd rather date my homework." The laughter that followed echoed through the hallway. Amelia wished the floor would open beneath her, revealing something to her or a distraction. For weeks, she replayed the moment in her mind. Every smile she gave disappeared. Every mirror became another reminder of what she believed she wasn't. But something unexpected happened. One evening, while staring at her unfinished homework, Amelia asked herself a question that changed everything. What if I stopped trying to become someone he would like, and became someone I would admire? She never told anyone about that promise. Instead, she quietly began working. She arrived at school earlier than everyone else to study. She read books about science, history, business, and psychology. She joined the debate club despite shaking with nerves during every speech. She started running each morning before sunrise, discovering that discipline was stronger than motivation. She filled journals with ideas. Every painful memory became another page. Every insult became another hour of practice. Every lonely lunch became another opportunity to read. No one noticed the transformation because it happened slowly. Pain has a strange way of becoming fuel when it is given direction. By graduation, Amelia wasn't known as the girl who had been rejected. She was known as the student who won national academic competitions. She earned a scholarship to a prestigious university. Years later, she founded a company that created affordable educational technology for schools around the world. Her work helped millions of students discover opportunities they had never imagined. One afternoon, while speaking at a leadership conference, Amelia recognized a familiar face waiting in line after her presentation. Ryan. He looked different now, older, quieter, almost nervous. "I don't know if you remember me," he said. Amelia smiled politely.
"Ido."
"I wanted to apologize. I was horrible to you." She could see that he meant it. The apology she had imagined for years finally arrived. Yet something surprising happened. It no longer mattered. "I forgave you a long time ago," she replied gently. He looked relieved. "I always wondered how you became so successful." Amelia looked out through the conference center windows. "The day you rejected me," she said, "I thought my life was over." Ryan lowered his eyes. "But it wasn't the end." She smiled. "It was the beginning." As he walked away, Amelia realized something she wished every teenager could understand. Her greatest achievement had never been proving Ryan wrong. It had been proving to the frightened girl she once was that another person's opinion could never determine her future. The rejection had not broken her. It had redirected her. Sometimes life hides its greatest gift inside its most painful moments, and sometimes the people who underestimate you unknowingly become the spark that ignites the fire you were always meant to carry. The conference ended with a standing ovation, but Amelia slipped away before the crowd could surround her. She had never become comfortable with applause. As she stepped outside, the crisp evening air reminded her of another day years ago, standing outside her high school after Ryan's rejection. Back then, she had believed the world was watching her humiliation. Now she realized something different. People had forgotten that moment long before she had. She had been carrying a burden that everyone else had left behind. That evening, she returned home and opened an old cardboard box she had kept hidden in the back of her wardrobe. Inside were the sketchbooks she had filled during high school. The pages were worn, and the pencil drawings had begun to fade, but each illustration carried a memory. Castles floated above clouds. Cities were built in the branches of ancient trees. Ordinary girls became explorers, inventors, and queens. She smiled. Those stories had been waiting patiently for her. Over the following months, Amelia found herself sketching again. Not because she wanted recognition, because she had finally rediscovered the little girl who had imagined entire worlds while sitting quietly at the back of the classroom. She wrote during early mornings before work. She illustrated every chapter herself. The story she poured onto the pages wasn't about Ryan. It wasn't even about rejection. It was about courage. When the manuscript was finished, she almost didn't send it to a publisher. Self-doubt whispered the same words it had whispered years before. Who would want to read something written by you? This time, Amelia answered. I would. She submitted the manuscript anyway. Months later, she received an email that began with the words every writer dreams of reading. We would be honored to publish your book. Tears filled her eyes. Not because she had become an author, but because she had kept a promise she had made to herself as a frightened teenager, that she would never allow someone else's opinion to decide who she could become. The novel became an unexpected success. Schools invited Amelia to speak to students, not about business or success, but about resilience. She never mentioned Ryan by name. Instead, she would hold up one of her old sketchbooks and say, everyone has a chapter they wish they could erase. Mine happened in a school hallway. The room would become silent. But if that chapter had never happened, I might never have discovered the strength to write the rest of my story. Students stayed behind after each talk.
Some spoke about bullying.
Others spoke about loneliness. Many admitted they had stopped believing in themselves because of one cruel comment. Amelia listened to every one of them. She knew what it felt like to believe that a single moment could define an entire future. Before leaving each school, she always wrote the same sentence on the whiteboard. Your worth is never decided by the people who fail to see it. Years later, as she walked past her old high school, the building looked smaller than she remembered. The corridors that had once seemed endless now felt ordinary. She stood for a moment in the same hallway where her heart had once been broken. There was no anger.
No sadness.
Only gratitude. Not for the humiliation itself, but for the person she had become, because she chose not to let it have the final word. She smiled quietly before turning towards the school gates. Her story had never been about the boy who rejected her. It had always been about the girl who refused to reject herself because society was made for individuals meant to stand out rather than blend in with the rest. The weeks following Ryan's rejection felt colder than the approaching autumn. Although Amelia had promised herself that she would no longer let his words define her, the pain lingered in quiet moments. Every corridor reminded her of the laughter that had echoed around her. Every classroom carried traces of that humiliating afternoon, and even when she managed to smile, part of her wondered whether everyone still remembered what had happened. One Saturday morning, desperate to escape her thoughts, Amelia wandered into a small independent bookshop tucked between a florist and an old cafe on the high street. The little shop smelled of polished wood, aged paper, and cinnamon. Sunlight filtered through dusty windows, casting warm golden beams across shelves filled with books of every shape and size. Most of the collection was neatly organized, but one forgotten corner held books that looked as though no one had touched them for decades. As Amelia reached for a novel, another book suddenly slipped from the shelf and landed gently at her feet. She frowned and bent down to pick it up. It was unlike any book she had ever seen. Its cover was bound in dark emerald leather, worn smooth with age. At its center was an intricate silver dragon with enormous wings spread protectively around a glowing flame. The dragon's amber eyes seemed almost alive, catching the light as though tiny embers flickered beneath the leather. There was no author's name, only a title embossed in silver. The Fire Within. Curiosity overcame her. She carefully opened the first page. Instead of a dedication, there was only a single sentence written in elegant handwriting. The dragons reveal themselves only to those who believe they are facing the fire alone. As Amelia traced the words with her finger, an unexpected warmth traveled through her hand. It wasn't painful. It felt comforting, almost as though someone had quietly placed a reassuring hand upon hers. She quickly looked around the shop, but no one appeared to have noticed. When she glanced back at the page, the warmth had disappeared. Without fully understanding why, Amelia bought the mysterious book. That evening, she curled up beneath her bedroom window and began reading. Unlike the fantasy stories she usually enjoyed, this one wasn't about dragons battling knights or defending treasure. Instead, it spoke of ancient guardian dragons that walked unseen beside ordinary people. They did not breathe fire to destroy villages or conquer kingdoms. They protected something far more precious:
Hope.
according to the stories, these dragons appeared beside children who felt invisible, teenagers who believed they would never be enough, and adults carrying burdens they thought no one else could see. Each dragon chose only one person and remained hidden until that person discovered the strength buried beneath their greatest fear. Amelia smiled as she closed the final page. "It would be wonderful if dragons like that really existed," she whispered. The next morning, everything seemed perfectly ordinary. Until science class. Mrs. Thompson instructed everyone to open their exercise books. As Amelia laid hers on the desk, something immediately caught her attention. Along the edge of one page, where there should have been nothing but a blank margin, was an incredibly detailed pencil drawing of a dragon. Its scales shimmered with remarkable detail. Its wings curved protectively around the corner of the page, while its long tail disappeared beneath the paper as though it continued somewhere beyond sight. Most striking of all were its eyes. They seemed to be looking directly at her. Amelia stared in confusion. "I don't remember drawing this." She rubbed the image with her thumb, expecting the graphite to smudge. Nothing happened. The drawing remained clear. Throughout the lesson, she could barely concentrate. Every few minutes, she found herself glancing back at the dragon. It never changed, yet something about it made her feel strangely calm. After school, she searched every notebook she owned. Not one contained another dragon, only her science book. Several days passed without another sign. Amelia convinced herself she must somehow have forgotten sketching it. Then Ryan walked past her in the hallway. He didn't even acknowledge her. Yet the memory of his cruel laughter returned instantly, making her chest tighten. Later that afternoon, when Amelia opened her science book, the dragon had returned. This time it was larger. Its wings stretched across almost half the page, wrapping around her notes, as though shielding them. Once again, those intelligent amber eyes seemed fixed upon her.
A chill ran through her body.
That evening, she hurried upstairs, retrieved the fire within from her bedside table, and flipped through its illustrations. Her breath caught. The dragon in her notebook was identical to one drawn near the end of the book. Every scale, every horn, every curve of its wings, even the tiny scar beneath its left eye. There was no difference. For several days, Amelia kept the discovery secret. She knew nobody would believe such an unbelievable story. Eventually, the secret became impossible to keep. During lunch, her best friend Sophie noticed Amelia staring at the dragon once again. "You've been looking at that page all week," Sophie said with a puzzled smile. "What's so interesting?" Amelia hesitated before quietly replying, "Promise you won't think I'm crazy?" "I promise." Taking a deep breath, Amelia explained everything. She told Sophie about the mysterious bookshop, the strange dragon book, the drawing that had appeared from nowhere, and how it seemed to return every time she felt overwhelmed. Finally, she spoke about Ryan and how deeply his rejection had hurt her. The moment his name left Amelia's lips, both girls froze. The dragon moved. Its wings lifted ever so slightly. Its tail slowly curled around the edge of the page. Then, for the briefest moment, it blinked. Sophie's face turned pale. I saw that." Amelia looked at her friend in disbelief. "You saw it too?" Sophie nodded silently. It wasn't just a drawing. Neither of them spoke for several moments. The following afternoon, they returned together to the little bookshop. As soon as the elderly bookseller saw Amelia carrying the fire within, she smiled knowingly. "I wonder how long it would take," she said. Amelia stopped in front of the counter. "You knew about this? The book always finds the person who needs it." "You mean this has happened before?" The bookseller unlocked an old wooden cabinet hidden beneath the counter and carefully removed a weathered leather journal. Inside were dozens of sketches of the very same dragon Amelia had seen in her science book. Each drawing was accompanied by the name of a young person from a different generation. Some had lost loved ones. Some had escaped terrible circumstances. Others had endured bullying, loneliness, rejection, or fear. The bookseller gently turned another page. They all met the same guardian. Amelia stared at the familiar dragon. "So, what exactly is it?" The old woman smiled kindly. "It is an ember guardian. A dragon?" "Yes. It doesn't exist to fight monsters. It protects those who believe they no longer have the strength to face them." Amelia looked again at the dragon illustration resting quietly in her science book. "It only appeared when I felt hurt." The bookseller nodded. "That is because it isn't feeding on your sadness." She paused before adding softly, "It is answering it." A peaceful silence settled over the little bookshop. For the first time since Ryan had humiliated her, Amelia no longer felt completely alone. Somewhere beyond ordinary sight, an ancient guardian dragon had been watching over her, patiently waiting for her inner fire to burn brightly once more. She was about to discover that the greatest power a dragon possessed was never its fire. It was its ability to awaken the fire already hidden within the human heart, the fire of forgiving and releasing her inner potential guarded by one true dragon. Ember Guardian.